I think, and again, this is not like an arrogant thing, but I think by a lot of measures, I've done a great job. Like I've got a good marriage, I've got a great family, I've got a good business, like we're okay financially, like blah, 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 blah. And I wasn't enjoying it. It was checklists on a to-do list.
What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Role Model Podcast. I am your host, Derek Peterson, and today I have the great Nico Pesci with me. Nico is an entrepreneur, a business leader who has built and scaled companies through focus on execution, leadership, and long-term thinking. He brings a perspective shaped by real-world experiences in growing teams, navigating risk, and building something from the ground up. So welcome, Nico. Where does this podcast find you?
Thanks for having me, man. I'm in rainy Orem, Utah today.
Oh, you guys got some rain?
Dude, we have had the most abysmal winter that I can remember, like in my entire life living here in Utah. It's a little sad, but there's always next ski season, I guess.
So no snow, huh?
It's literally, it is the worst snowfall on record in Utah, I think, ever. Was on the mountain actually yesterday skiing with my kids, and at about 1:00 it turned into wet slush, and we're like, and then we left the house this morning. It was raining. I was like, okay, so yeah, but that's where it finds me. I'm sitting in my office and trying to get a little bit of work done before I head out of town. Actually, coming down to Texas tomorrow, but I'll be at DFW. So
okay, yeah. I don't go to Dallas. We don't like them up there.
I usually don't either, but I have to tomorrow.
Yeah, the Austin and Dallas are two very different places.
It's like living. I'm very aware of it.
You might as well call it Oklahoma. So
yeah, it's a different state.
That's how people in Austin feel about it. It's like the Los Angeles version of Oklahoma.
I have learned though that Texans, man, they every Texan I know talks about how Texas is the greatest country in the U.S. And wherever they're from, because I've got a bunch of friends that are in San Antonio, and hearing the difference between San Antonio and Austin and DFW, like it's 3 different states. It's crazy.
Yeah, San Antonio can claim nothing but the Spurs. That's about it. So, yeah,
I know better than to mess with Texas, so I'm staying out of this. I'm not involved in this conversation.
Well, dude, let's jump straight into it. So the Role Model Podcast is about growth, and specifically, I love having these conversations with men because oftentimes we don't talk about this stuff, at least not on a public forum as often as I would like to see. So the basis for this podcast is if you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice throughout your life, what time period in your life would you go and meet yourself, and what would you tell yourself?
Oh, geez. What's interesting about this is the context that you haven't shared yet is that you knew me when I would go back to that age. So it's funny because
that way I can call bullshit on it if
100%. Well, I'm just going to tell you all the things that you knew, but it's funny. So I would go back to my younger self. I don't know if I would say junior high or high school, but whatever age it was, and just holy cow, stop being lazy and learn the value of hard work. That's probably the biggest thing. And I see it as a parent now, where I see these same attributes in as a teenager with my kids, and it's like, just put the work in. And so I don't know, but there's a part of me that, I don't know if 12-year-old me or 13-year-old me would listen, right? That's the other part of it too, is I was thinking about this question, and I'd go back and I would say, hey, grit has a purpose and hard work has a purpose. And the glory is not the focus, it's the work. But I don't know if younger me would listen. I really don't. It took growing up and learning some lessons the hard way of like, holy cow, a work ethic matters.
So at what point in your life do you feel like the work ethic really started to kick in for you?
Probably, I would say it's probably when I started my company. It was probably the late 2009, 2010.
And I think it's important to note here for everybody that's listening to this, so you run a really successful company and you do work your ass off. So like, there's no question about that. And, I'll jump in a little bit here, but, like your work ethic is, fantastic now.
And I appreciate that. And it's coming from I don't know if you remember, I'm sure you do, but I'm also the kid that would happily pay someone to carry my backpack up a hill because I was lazy. That's how lazy I was. I was like, hey, I
I
bet
think I
Derek's brother
benefited from that. If you
100%. It's like the walk from our high school to your house was just an uphill walk. And I was like, I got $3 in my pocket and I don't want to carry this bag full of books. I bet Derek or someone else will carry it for $3. And so maybe I learned a lesson about entrepreneurship and offloading things. That's probably not the real lesson there. But I was just, I don't know, man. I was lazy. And so I think it was probably in my mid 20s. I started my company in 2009. So I'd have been 25, almost 26. And I think that's where the rubber really met the road. And I realized, like, holy cow, this is not going to happen just because I wanted to. Like, it's up until that point, there was a lot of experiences where I think, without saying area, like things came naturally, like with music, like, I could figure that out. Like school could figure that out. So I never really had to work super hard to be decent at something. But I was decent. I was never like next level. Right. And when I started my career, I've been finance. Finance is a really tough industry, has a 95% fail rate in the first 5 years. So if you jump into this industry, there's about a 95% chance you won't be in it within 5 years. It's brutal.
Yep.
And I had no choice but to make it work. And so I learned, like, I had to put in the work. I had to make the calls. I had to do the work. I had to do the studying. And
Was
then,
there a point during that season of life that you felt like it was going to fail?
oh my gosh, the entire season. So I was doing executive recruiting for a couple of years, was doing well with it. This was during the financial crisis, banking. I was working in executive recruiting for banking, and saw the writing on the wall. Didn't enjoy it. It wasn't going to keep being lucrative, and I really wanted to work for myself. I wasn't sure what I would do, but I really wanted to work for myself and just kind of do my own thing. All my other brothers had done that, and I quit my job in the fall of 2009. I started my practice or got my licenses the end of 2009. And then the company that I parked my license with, so I ran my own practice, but I partnered with another group, so I could have like health insurance and an office space and the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
And I partnered with those guys in 2010. And I got a phone call in May that they were leaving the industry. This was when the Affordable Care Act passed. They wanted to focus on health insurance for some reason. So they moved out of finance, went to the health insurance world. And from May until September, I didn't have any contracts. So I couldn't write business with anyone. My wife was pregnant with our first. She was born in August of that year. I made $7,000 from January to May. And then I made another $7,000 from September to December. So I had a whopping $14,000 income in 2010 when my daughter was born. I'm pretty sure I had no health insurance because we lost the contracts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that entire season, I kept asking myself, like, what the heck am I doing? And I remember, though, this was at the very, very start. I went to this like conference, and I wish I knew this guy's name. I wish I could find him because it's probably one of the most like influential speeches I've heard. But his family came from the Soviet Union, and he told this story of them trying to immigrate into the United States. And I'll make the long story short. But basically, his brother was killed during the process. His father was almost killed, and his father just kept trying to find a way out of the country and to get asylum in the U.S. And he told this is crazy story. And this guy was now successful. He lived in California, but he talked about how options make you weak. And I remember that phrase stuck out with me so much because he talked about how like his father was just so dead set on getting out of the Soviet Union, getting to the States, no matter what it would cost him, no matter what the risks were, he just wasn't going to give. And so he kept going to like consulates and kept going to try and apply for visas. And even the people that he was talking to at the visas were like, what are you doing? Like, you're not going to get this ever approved. Like, stop coming, basically. And he just kept going and kept going and kept going. And finally he got it approved. And this theory that options make you weak, meaning if you set your mind on something, don't give yourself a plan B, don't give yourself a way out because you'll find it and you'll take it. And in the first few years, trying to build a practice from scratch, having $0, not letting my wife know how broke we were, having a lot of money on credit cards. I think if someone would have given me a way out, I probably would have taken it because that's how desperate it was. And luckily I didn't get offered one. And so I just had to just keep working and keep working. And, we just celebrated 16 years in business and, life's good and yada, yada, yada. But man almighty, that was the biggest turning point, was like,
Yeah.
you want something, go get it. Don't be in love with the idea of it. Be in love with the work. And then whatever comes from it will come from it.
Yeah,
But
that
I
was going
love
to
the
be my
idea of
next.
it.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question was why didn't you bail during that season? What kept you in it?
I didn't have a degree. So I mean that literally. So like I went to Utah
We
Valley
both have
University.
we have similar journeys on a lot of our stuff
It's
because
it's so
we
f-
work in parallel fields and all of this stuff. But yeah, you have to cut the net. You cut once the net's
and
cut, you have no safety, so you just
you
go.
go. And I remember, so like I went to Utah Valley University for a couple of years, and I ended up not. I was so bored with school. I'm like, I don't want to talk about this anymore. I want to just go do it. I want to just get to work. And so I started studying finance, and I stopped going to school, and just I'm like, I'll learn as I go. And that those first 2-3 years though, there's a lot of tech companies here in Utah, and this is when it was really starting to kind of blow up. And I'm like, you know what? I can go be a sales guy for any one of these tech companies, and I bet I can make more than $14,000. So, and I would go look at these job postings, and they all 4-year degree required, and that kept me from pursuing other things because there was nowhere to apply. And I was like, fine, if I can't get hired by someone, I'll go build my own thing.
Yep. Yeah, that's part of the entrepreneur life is that if you decide to opt out of college, it means you're building your own thing, and there's risk reward with that, right? So let's talk about kind of like the climb out of that. So what did that look like in the years to follow? When did it start to turn a corner for you?
2015, I would say I started to see
Wow,
like
so
the
from
light.
2010 to 2015 was like
It
pretty
was
much.
rough. I mean, like every year got a little bit better, right? Like 2010 was the worst year ever. And then 2011, a little bit better, 12, a little bit better, 13, 14. Each year got incrementally better. And I remember I had my first like breakout year in 2014. And I was like, okay, I can actually make a living. Like I can pay my bills and have money and we're good. And then found some partners in 2015. Or mentors, I would say, that I started to learn from. And that really helped turn a corner. And then just every year just kind of got gradually better and better. And it really is. I remember mentors early on just saying, hey, you have to get past these first few years. Like it almost is just a war of attrition. Like you just have to outlast the rest of the people. Um, and then every year has just grown and grown and grown. Like we've grown every year since I started. But those first few years, man, they were rough. There's no amount of money someone could pay me to do them again. I'll say that.
Yeah, absolutely. So what does that look like now? Like how does that play into what you're doing now? Like what came out of that 2015 and that season to kind of launch you onto the next level? Because we're in 2026, so now you're what
November will be 17 years.
17 years? Yeah. So 17 years in the business. And it took you about 4 or 5 years to get where you needed, like to a point where you felt comfortable with it. So from, 2015 to now, what does that trajectory look like and how has your business changed and morphed, and have you seen branches of it kind of come off? Have you had to pivot at any point to, change, or do you have a core business
Yeah.
that like operates how you need it to operate?
There's been little iterations of change, along the journey. The first few years, you're running solo. Like
Yeah.
I was the only guy, right? And I think I looked at hiring my first like part-time assistant in 2013, started kind of partnering with some people in 2014, bringing in ideas. Um, the big pivot was just learning, like, regardless of whatever industry you're in, the economy of scale, right? So you can't be a lone wolf. You can't do everything on your own. Like I had to hire people. I had to have people help with service work, or I had to help them with like paperwork. In my world, you can't be the advisor, the planner, the service worker, the paperwork, person. Like it's impossible. And
Yeah.
then over time, as the company continued to grow, starting to realize, okay, well, here's where you need the most effort, or you need the most amount of people. There's been little changes along the way for sure. How I started definitely was different than where I started to transition in 2015. In 2015 to 2020, there were more transitions. In 2023, there was a massive transition. And so, I think that my personality type is very much a happy but never satisfied, which is a blessing and a curse. If you have the right channel to put it energy into, it can be really, really great. But try to just stay open to, okay, like, I tell clients a lot, what got you here won't get you there. And that's a mentality, I think, in retirement planning that's really important. And it's the exact same thing with a business. Like, what works for the first 3 years or what you have to do as a business owner at the very beginning, it's probably not going to be the same conversation 5 years into it. And then when you scale to a certain size after 5 or 10 years, you probably need different concepts, than what you need next. Like, I look at that now, 16 plus years in business, and I'm still thinking like, hey, there's some new iterations that we probably should start to focus on if we want to get to this, next level that we're chasing. And
Yeah.
full circle, though, all of that, if you don't have the work ethic, which is, the core of the conversation, none of this is going to work out. Doesn't matter how smart you are. And I have this conversation with my son all the time because he's an avid athlete. He's so naturally talented. And it's like, dude, you're going to meet a kid who's not as naturally talented as you, but he's going to outwork you and he's going to whoop you because work ethic will always beat talent.
That was this guy. I feel like that's the
Listen,
one thing. What's that?
I will argue till I'm blue in the face about you. You had tons of natural talent, but you also had a crazy work ethic. And you combine the two, and they're a very dangerous combo. But a work ethic without talent.
I would argue that the talent wasn't as much there. The work ethic has always been there, and it's what I've, and that's what I love about this conversation, because I would actually argue the same for you, that your work ethic was a lot stronger than you give yourself credit for. And dude, we had a really unique upbringing, like we had a really unique dude, our childhood was very different.
It's insane.
My mom, I talk to my mom about it all the time. It's just and trying to explain it to people, it's like, yeah, well, I have 3 siblings, but then we had 4 other kids living in our house. And they're like, what?
Why?
I'm like, it's, it's hard to explain, but yeah, like my brother's best friend, my bass player, my guitarist, and then my linebacker all lived in my house with me.
And what's funny is I look at this now as an adult, and the amount of credit that I have to give your mother, I'm like, how? Because I think if you ask anyone who was around us in high school, everyone's going to say the most iconic thing that they'll always talk about was Sunday dinners.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Dude. And Sunday dinners at the Peterson house was an event, and everyone knew we'll meet at the stoop. Sunday dinner's there. Maybe there's going to be some the cheesy potatoes. Like, there's all sorts of like dishes, right, that were like staples. And I look back now and I'm like, there were some weekends like 40 people showed up. And as an adult, I'm like, how on earth did they afford to do this every week? And whether it was affordable or not, it was a tradition. And I'm so freaking grateful for it, like so insanely grateful for it. But between that and then also, like, I look at it as a parent, like my oldest is 15. When we were playing music, I think our first tour, I was probably 15. And maybe a little bit older, right? But I know like a lot of the 2-week tours that we would do were my junior year and then my senior year.
Yeah, because it was our senior year, and then the year after my senior year, and the year after when we really started going. Yeah,
and I look at that and I'm like, who the hell let a bunch of 16 and 17-year-old kids get in an RV or a truck and just drive all over the West Coast and play music? And if my daughter came to me and was like, hey, Dad, I'm in a band and we have this like little mini record deal, but we got an opportunity to open for a really famous band, so can we go on tour? Oh, by the way, no adults. And I'm like, oh, yeah, go. That's a great idea. You should do it. It's insane. So not
crazy.
Just the living situation, but like what we got to do was bananas.
Yeah, but that was like a testament to, I think, just who we were. I think one of the things that that my parents particularly, and for people that don't know us or our relationship, you moved in with me basically from junior high through high school. Yeah. We met and started hanging out. I asked you to play. I think I asked you to play bass in the band that Aaron and I had started, Infernal Racket.
Man,
and you had jumped in on that, and then you asked if you could stay. Your mom was out of town one weekend, and that weekend turned into like 8
7 years.
Yeah, 7 or 8 years. So
which again also is crazy. I look back as a parent, I'm like, why didn't I live at my house with my parents?
Yeah.
But
Because our house was
again,
cooler.
it was so
But
much
no,
more fun.
our house was interesting, and this is actually something I've had to deal with as an adult a little bit because like the bonus to the upbringing that we had was that we had a lot of autonomy. Like we could kind of do whatever we needed to do. The downside is that we didn't have a lot of guidance, and so we were figuring a lot of stuff out on our own
100%.
at an early age. And I would say that the difference between us and our probably, and I can't speak for you, but my investment in my children is very much different in the way that like I want them to have access to me whenever they need it. We didn't have access to our parents whenever we needed it. And furthermore, when we did, we probably didn't trust the answers that were going to come out of their mouth anyway.
Well, and I think part of it too, like, yeah, as a teen, I do remember my dad, he always he shared a quote and I forget where it came from, but it's basically, when I was a teenager, I was shocked at how stupid my parents were. And when I became an adult, I was amazed at how smart they had grown. And the reality is that you start to shift in how you see things as well. But like, it's interesting. I mean, the work ethic concept, I guess, go full circle again. Like, it was applied to certain things. And it's interesting because I do think, and this is a human nature concept, but like if you look at people in general, the lack of transferability of discipline is really interesting because we would like, we'd finish school and then we'd go jam and we'd go play music for hours, right? So we
Yeah.
had the discipline to stay focused and do that. Or, during our high school years, we were recording, we'd have school. We'd have either wrestling practice, which was the worst year of my life because I was too lazy to cut weight and fight 215. So I just got manhandled by heavyweights like you. And that was really cool. And then, or we had football or whatever it was, but like you were freaking student council president, right? So it's like there were all these hard work things. And that was all done because we wanted to play music. And then we'd go record at like 9 o'clock at night. We'd hit Beto's at midnight, right? Go back to the studio, finish recording until like 2 a.m. and then get up and go to school. So like
Yep.
there was this like work ethic there. But if you tried to get me to do anything physical, like, hey, you should go run a mile, that's not going to happen, right?
Yeah,
So
but
that
that's
that
where
lack of transferability, I thought, is always interesting to me.
Yeah, but I would also attribute that to you as a strength, and it took me a while because, we had some rough years of our friendship even when we were younger. There was some times, I think, shortly after high school, and then when you decided that you didn't want to be in the band anymore and you left California,
California.
there was some, like there was some struggle, I think, in general with a lot of that stuff. But in hindsight, I look back on that season of life and also just kind of who you were as a person. I think one of the things I've never looked at you as somebody that didn't have a work ethic. I looked at you as somebody that just kind of knew what they were willing and wanted to do, and then what they didn't want to do. And the things that you didn't want to do were very clear all the time. But when you wanted
I
to do something, it was there. It was just when you didn't want to do something, it was
Yeah.
like insanely obvious. Where the rest of us would be like, "Nah, we got to do this thing," and you were like, "Can I
No, I
pay you
don't.
to do it?"
Yeah, my wife describes that as I'm utterly obsessed or completely disinterested. And I would
Yes,
love to
that's
tell you
it.
so actually you're probably right, honestly, Derek. Like that personality trait probably hasn't passed too much. Like my father-in-law likes to tease me. My father-in-law is a great guy and he's the most handy person I've ever met in my entire life. Can
Mhm.
figure out anything, build anything, do anything. And I remember when Abby and I first got married, he gave me a tool set for Christmas. I was like, "What the hell am I going to do with this? Like, I don't even know what to do with it." And he's like, "It's not for you, it's for me." He's like, "So when I come to your house to fix things, I need tools to work with." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." And to this day, I still don't know how to do most of it, and I don't want to. And like
Yeah.
so yeah, you're probably not wrong because there are things where I'm willing to put my time into it, and there are things still I'm
Now,
not going to
like
do it.
I would say that most of us had, if I had to describe you, even when we were younger, I would have probably even then described you as like a middle-aged to older soul. Maybe not. I wouldn't have given you old soul at
Oh,
the outset, but I would have been
just a
like, yeah, like. I mean, because that's a concept that we get into now, right? Is it's like as you get older, you start to realize, like, man, like time is the most finite asset we have, and it's slowly depleting, and there's no way to get it back. And so,
Yep.
when you spend a good portion of your life, like I did, people pleasing and jumping through hoops for other people to get accolades, and
Yep.
there's one thing to be praised for the work ethic involved in that. There's another thing to be for those situations to be looked at for what they really are, which is just you know a hurting little kid trying to get somebody's attention and trying to get validation, right? And
100%.
just and to some degree there was some of that in all of us. Like we probably had more free reign than we really should have at the ages. And so the byproduct of that is that when you're a kid and you don't have a lot of parental supervision, and you're doing life you're basically living like an adult all the time, then you just want to be an adult. You just want to hurry up and grow up. And I remember that feeling. It's crazy. I read this book, Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents, which was fantastic. But it's interesting because in that book, I started to realize that the lack of parenting around me, and the fact that we were on our own almost all of the time, really does. And they explain it in the book is, if you're doing all of the adult things as a child, then by the time you're 14, 15, and 16, you have these restrictions on you, and you have no idea why, because you're doing everything else
Interesting.
that adults are doing, but you just don't have the privileges that adults have. And so there's this automatic rush into adulthood because you've never been fully able to just be the kid that
Be a
you wanted
kid.
to be. And so there is a part of me that has, like with my children, and it sounds like you with your children as well, that there is a very important aspect in this that, like, yeah, we want to give our kids the freedom and instill the values that we have. But, those seeds just need to be a seed. Like you just need an iota of it. Like what we really want is we want them to be kids until they're not, and then when they're not, because that's a finite amount of time, and once it's done, it's done. You don't get to go back. And then we sit and have conversations like this about what would you do if
Yeah.
you could go
Yeah.
back and change
Well,
and
and
change a bunch of shit.
I think it's to me, it's one of the hardest things about parenting, where like you see what they need while also seeing the limitations of what you can or can't provide, and then trying to find that balance between the two. And I've always argued that an aware parent is a parent who thinks they're not doing a good job. Like it's and I see this transfers over to finance as well. Like I had this conversation with clients at the time, but like the people who worry that they're not doing a good job are the ones who typically are, because they understand how high the stakes are and how important it is to get it right. They understand what matters and what's on the line. And so they're being self-aware. They're being self-reflective. Like it's the parent who, after the kids are asleep, they sit down, they go, "God, I could have handled this conversation differently." Or like, maybe I should have been more patient there, or calmer there. I should have, been more present here, or done this differently. And I think that parent usually is on the right track compared to, if the conversations are like, "Man, my kids are assholes and I don't know why," there's probably a need for some self-reflection there, right?
Yeah.
But it's so hard to find that balance of like, you got to be present, but you got to be distant enough they figure stuff out on their own. You have to be insightful enough to get them to think, but not give so much autonomy that they don't know, they can't figure it out on their own. Because again, no disrespect to any 15-year-old, but they're still pretty stupid. They're figuring stuff
Oh,
out, right? So
yeah,
so
very.
that's
I mean,
it's that balance that I'm still trying to figure it out. But you come to the table with your lessons that you've learned and the things that you would do differently, or the things that you wish you would have learned earlier. And then, but it goes back to what I said at the very start of the conversation. I think if I met my 14-year-old self or my 15-year-old self and just said, "Hey, your confidence shouldn't come from someone else's approval of you. You don't have to earn their love and respect. Have more confidence in yourself. Work hard for the things you want. Be in love with the outcome, not with the glory of it, but like the actual like process of it." I don't know if 15-year-old me would have had any idea what the heck I'm talking about.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so I think part of it also is like, you have to be willing to learn the hard way. And as a parent, you have to be willing to let them learn the hard way, while also trying to make, I would love for you to not go through some of this heartache that I went through, or headache that I went through. I don't know if I have an answer there, but it's such a
Yeah,
hard
but
balance.
it is a balance, and you're 1,000% correct because, like, like I think about this, and the reason I started this and this podcast was interesting to me because I was thinking about who I was when I was a kid, and that exact thing came up for me because I spent so much time working my ass off and doing everything on my own. I was very uncoachable. I was very unteachable. I didn't like people giving me input, and it was really hard for me to, like, when I started to unpack all this, to look back on my life and realize that about myself. But so
Interesting.
much of that came from the fact that I had done so many things on my own that I felt like I didn't need other people. I didn't
Yeah.
need and I had kind of trailblazed my own way. And for my family, that was relatively unique. Like, I was doing things that nobody else in my family did. I mean, I was the first one to get straight A's. I was the first one to, get any kind of accolades in that essence. So, as I was pushing through to kind of figure that out, I look back on it and I'm like, man, one, I for sure, I think I caveat this podcast with the fact that if you're talking to your future self as a child, that hopefully it resonates, that you can actually get through to that kid, because
100%.
there's so many things that I would tell myself about that season of life. And if I'm being honest, the thing that I regret the most was just how arrogant I was, and how little I was willing to take other people's input, because I made a lot of decisions in my life for the based on insecurities. And I would actually even say that, like, pursuing our band, like, I gave up going to college I had 5 or 6 different opportunities to wrestle or play football in college, or accept a leadership scholarship to somewhere. And I chose not to do all of that stuff because I wanted to be famous. And I wanted to be famous because I got my ass kicked when I was in elementary school, and I wanted to basically, it was this
Be the guy.
retaliate. Yeah, I wanted to be the guy that everybody wanted to be friends with. So when they all wanted to be like me, I could reject them and make them feel the exact same way I felt when I was a
Interesting.
kid, which is a really fucked up scenario. And it didn't took me 2 divorces to figure out what I was doing. So, or where all this stuff was. I'm like, man, why do I keep people pleasing? What's going on with me? Uh, it took a lot of therapy to finally get to the point where I understood this about myself. But yeah, like, there's a lot to be said about when you're talking to your children, and that I think one of the best things that they can know is that you're there and you're present, and that they're loved no matter what, because
Yeah.
that ultimately conveys and allows you to speak truth into their life. When your kids are doing everything on their own and on an island, or if they feel like they're on an island, or they don't feel understood, or they don't feel accepted for exactly who they are. And I would probably argue that was me, right? Like, I didn't feel like, because I was a fat kid, I kind of always had that running in the back of my head. And so then moving forward, I everything that happened after that was based on the decisions that I made as a middle, or grade schooler and middle schooler, to get back at those kids. And I pursued it valiantly and turned down some scholarships that now I look at, I'm like, God, if I had gone to Columbia, I might be living a different life now.
Well, it's funny though, because it's a chip on the shoulder, and what's interesting though is that I think those chips come from lots of different reasons, right? Whether
Yeah.
it be a lack of acceptance, or even if there's a pressure on yourself to be something or do something or achieve something. We had a little bit of a different background in that sense, but like in my family, part of my chip when I started my company was like, I looked at all my siblings and all my both my parents, like, education's massive in our family. Like,
Yeah.
we've got two attorneys. I think there are 2 or 3 people with master's degrees. One of my brothers has a PhD. My mom has a PhD. My dad has like, I didn't finish college. So it's like, but
Yeah.
that chip to, like, to prove something or to achieve
Yeah.
something. And if you look at it, like, a lot of high achievers typically have some sort of chip on their shoulder, whether it be from some sort of neglect where like they have to go earn their worth, or they're trying to keep up, or they're trying to fit in, and I think that what's interesting, like, I'm not a psychologist by any means, but I don't think any of those things are intrinsically avoidable for most humans, right? You might have different reasons why they show up, but they show up. And I think the learning for me that I've been trying to like teach with my kids is like, okay, so what are you going to do with it? If
Yep.
there's a chip on your shoulder, fine. What are you going to do with it? Can it fuel you to, to do good in the world? Can it fuel you to be a better person, right? Like if someone struggled financially growing up and they finally come into money, it's like, okay, does that make that person more altruistic where they go out and they do charity work and they get involved in their community and they give back, or are they going to have a scarcity mentality because they're missing it? And it's so crazy to me because everyone has their own, let's call it skeletons in the closet, whatever you want to refer it as. But what they make of it and how that shapes that next story that they tell, it's so interesting to me because you might have two people go through the exact same scenario and they're going to come out two different people. And
Oh,
and
for
so that's
sure.
that nature nurture conversation. I see that, with my own kids where it's like they grew up in the same household, but all three of my kids are very, very different,
Yep.
and so it's trying to teach them like, hey, it's there. I think there is some truth to life. Like it's what you make of it. It's how you view like the stories we start to tell ourselves about why something happened, what it means about this, what it means about us.
Well,
I
and what
almost
it
like that's more
communicates about
important.
ourselves. Yeah. Because that, like, all of my childhood stuff came from that exact thing, which is it was more about what was happening, what it communicated about me. And there was this really big confusion. This was actually before we met. When I was in elementary school, I got picked on religiously because you didn't meet me until after I grew. After
Yeah.
I, got huge, then everybody liked me. But when I was still a roly poly, there was this, this thing in the back of my head where I'm like, man, why don't people just like me? Like, what did I do? Like, why don't people, like, if they just knew who I was, they would think I was cool. Or it's funny, like, I remembered when I was going through a lot of the therapy I went through that, I remember this moment when I was walking and there was these kids that would bully me on my way home from school every day, from Windsor Elementary. I would be walking home and these high schoolers would be walking past from where they got dropped off on the bus stop. And in my head, I would just be like, man, if they knew I listened to like Pantera and Metallica, they would think I was so cool. They would think I was, like, and it's crazy that I remembered those thoughts, but it's like, yeah, it's how you manifest it. And as a kid, you just don't know what's going, like, why is this happening to me? And so then and those things unprocessed, lead us to some really dark places. Like, when you're a kid, you tell yourself immature stories. And if those immature stories because you're a kid, you have no other gauge for it. You can't tell yourself a mature story as a child because you don't have the life experience to do
Yep.
it. So the immature stories get written into your subconscious and then oftentimes lived out over the course of your life because you've never actually gone back and, figured out what those stories were and addressed them and then move forward. But I wanted to ask you, after, if you had to go back now, would you go to college? Would you change like what happened from after high school on?
I don't think so. I really don't. I struggled with this for a little while. Like I debated probably 6 or 7 years into my practice, like let's go finish it because I was looking at so like in my industry, if you want to be a CFP, a certified financial planner, that's a certain designation that's held by the CFP board, and you have to have a 4-year degree. And so like it's interesting is like our firm, we've got 18 people. We have probably 450 million of assets that we've collectively we manage. And having done that for 16 years with all that, I've coached and trained other financial advisors across the country. And I've done that for a decade now. I couldn't get a CFP. They wouldn't let me. With all my work experience, with all my qualifications in the industry and the credentials, they wouldn't let me because I don't have a 4-year degree.
Yeah.
And so I debated years and years ago, like, let's just go finish this stupid thing. And what's funny is that part of me is like, no, I'm not doing it just to say I have it. That's stupid. And then, but part of me is like, it's interesting. I don't think I would change anything because I'm very happy with where I am. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying things are perfect. I'm not saying my world's perfect, but I'm very happy. And I look at every one of these mistakes that was made. Maybe not finishing my school at the time was a mistake. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
moving to California for a year was a mistake. Maybe quitting the band was a mistake. I don't know. But like I do remember when I chose to quit the band and move back to Utah. I remember at the time talking to my dad about it, and I told him like what I was debating, and he's like, "Whatever's meant to be in the end will always be the right decision." He's like, "And you might not know it at the time, but in the end, it will be the right decision for everyone who's involved in it."
Yeah.
And so I look back now, it's like, yeah, there's a ton of these experiences that shaped a lot of who I became and how I was raised and who I was at the time and but I don't know if I would take any of it back because I don't know if I'd end up where I am now. And it's still kind of a work in progress, right? I'm still trying to get better every day at, being a better father, a better husband, a better business owner, a better employer, all the things, just a better human.
Yep.
But I don't know how to do that if I took away any of the lessons that got me to where I am now. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Totally. Yeah, I think I've struggled with similar things because, like, I have a history of taking the hard road for just about everything. And so and that's because I can handle it, like, so I'm like, well, this isn't going to be easy, but fuck it, let's go. And I look back on the decisions we made, moving to LA, not finishing college, same thing. And I got a freaking education by just working,
Going.
like,
Yep.
yeah. And my work ethic got me from, a terrible band to,
Whoa, whoa, whoa,
I wasn't
whoa.
talking about just you. Kairos was okay. But it wasn't
You and I have
terrible.
always disagreed with this. I
It
still
was,
listen to that. Every now and then I'll still put it on. I'm like, you know what, dude,
mediocre at best.
for a bunch of 16-year-olds, no, man. I'll argue till I'm blue in the face.
No, but
I do look back and I'm like, that was awesome.
dude, I
For
wouldn't
for
take.
for being 16, holy cow, man.
No, I had some freaking crazy experiences, right? Like, I won my state championship match at UVU, and then a
Remember
year
that
later opened for 311 in the same place.
arena.
Like,
Yep.
yeah, it was freaking, there was some really amazing things. And then, going from like moving to California and loading in and out of nightclubs and working at a machine shop that we had to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, get off at 2, then drive, load our gear, drive to Los Angeles, play a show, and get
Do
back
it again.
just in time for us to and literally get back in time for us to go to work, like not to
Yep.
sleep, get back in time for us to literally go straight to work. And I just remember doing all that stuff, and that parlayed into getting a job at the record store in LA, and that turned into a job at Capitol Records, which turned
Yep.
into a job at Live Nation, which turned into, this career that I had set out on. And, that was an education in and of itself. Was it the hard road? Maybe. I learned a lot, and I'm thankful for it. But, sometimes I look back and I was like, yeah, again, a degree from Columbia would be nice. I wouldn't be.
Well, and I think what's
I don't
interesting
think I'd
though,
ever have
like
to worry about a job.
I think it is interesting to me though, because I think, it's that concept of like the grass is always greener.
Yeah. We
You know,
don't know. I might be a complete
yeah.
asshole if I had gone to
You
college.
you go become some sort of like actuarial nerd and like hated your life, but you're really good with a calculator because you went to Columbia. I don't know. Like you never know. I
Yeah,
mean,
no.
now that's not saying that's the trajectory I would have thought for you, but my point is just like I think it's especially then to go kind of full circle to what you said at the very beginning of the conversation of like, men don't always talk about these things. I think there's a common thread for a lot of men. They get into their 40s and they're like, okay, this is the trajectory I'm on. Like whatever trajectory you're on by about 40, 45 is probably the trajectory you're going to stay on for most people, I'd say. And I think it's easy to start to have these questions of like, if I had done this differently, what would have ended up differently here? Would this have been better? Whatever. But I think it goes back, in my eyes, it goes back to the same conversation about, hard work and not being afraid of it. Because the reality is that like in anything we do in life, we're going to pick our hard, right? Like you could have the
Yeah,
hard work of success, you have the hard work of failure, you have the hard work of victory, the hard work of loss. Like,
yeah,
but then it goes into like, well, what's the story you tell yourself about like what it meant when that happened? Like, I don't know. I mean, there's tons of people that, end up waking up one day in like their 50s and 60s and they're not happy. And I think that awareness kind of goes back to that conversation there of like, if you're building something that you don't love, then yeah, make some changes. But if you're building something that just might have some challenges along the way, that's part of the journey. And like, I think
Yeah.
it's been a big lesson for me too, is like, again, that happy but never satisfied mentality. Like the last year or so, there's been a lot of like personal work I've been doing to try and just like find my joy in it all, because I got so focused on work and building what we did that I'm like, I have no hobbies. Most of my closest friends don't live in Utah. Like work is my world. I got my work and I got my family, like, and that cycle just repeats. And, you know, about a year ago, I started kind of asking some questions of like, okay, like I got to find myself again, because I'd lost it in work.
Yeah.
And then realizing that like the journey is the destination. Who knows where you're going to end up and who knows what the outcome is going to be. But like the entire point of all this is the journey,
Yeah.
and the road that took you to where you are today. Like there's a reason for it. And maybe
Yep.
it would have been different. You can't say it'd be better or worse, but it would have been different. But I think that for me at least, like attaching too much to that what if scenario, because I loved playing music. I loved it. I mean, I
Yeah.
didn't like for me, I didn't go see live music for so long after walking away from it, because it was painful. Because
Ah.
to this day, I don't know if I've ever found a high as amazing as you walk on stage, the lights are off, there's 4,000 people in the audience, and when the lights turn off and they know the show's at the start, everyone goes insane.
Yeah.
One of the coolest feelings on earth, right? And so,
Also
like,
one that
you
just
know,
makes you want to throw up into a giant bucket behind
oh
you.
man, it's
I
funny. I
hated it.
actually,
I
do you
hated
really?
it.
I had
Dude,
no, I
do you remember
lived
that
for it.
first 311 show that we
Oh
did
my
in
gosh,
Idaho?
man.
And I played everything at like
10,000
27
speed.
times the speed. Yes. I was like, dude, that's kind of when I started to realize, like, man, I'm not built for this. Like, dude, and you know what's crazy is I'm the opposite. Like, I get that joy and experience from listening and watching music. Like, I adore it. Like, and I found that out later, but like, I was never meant to be somebody that played music. My involvement in music was always the love
As
of
a fan.
music. Yeah, I'm not a creator. I'm a, uh, you know, taste tester or whatever you would call it.
Oh
But
man,
it
that's
was,
those experiences shaped, for me at least. Like,
yeah,
you know,
that's pretty cool though. Like, how do, is there, is there a desire to do more of that kind of stuff in your life now?
no, not
Okay.
in the slightest. So it's
Okay.
interesting. Like,
Good.
but like where go full circle. You know, there a lot of changes in my career started in like 2015 when I started doing like public events, and I would
Yeah.
go and I'd speak and do, you know, dinner events or education events or conferences or whatever. And I realized like I enjoy it. I enjoy that performance side. If you put me in a room, this is true story. Like, so if you put me in a room with like 10 people I don't know and I have to small talk, it's the inner circle of hell for me. Like there's nothing I hate more than that. But if you throw
Mm.
me on stage and like there's a, you know, either I'm speaking to a topic that I'm comfortable with or in front of people, that's my calmness. In 2023, I was on a panel for a industry conference in Switzerland. And I had, at the time, I was wearing one of those Aura rings. And what's so funny is that as like I looked at the data once I finished. So I go up on stage. There's like 300, you know, the top advisors in the U.S. are at this conference, and I go up on stage and I'm being interviewed, and Chris Voss is going on right after me, and I was like, holy cow! And I looked at the data on my Aura ring later that night. My heart rate dropped when I got on stage, and afterwards there was like a Q&A, like a small little Q&A with like a small group. My heart rate went through the roof. Like it's so weird. It makes no
That's so
sense, but
funny.
like I know
Nah,
what I enjoy.
yeah, dude, it's funny because like that, I call that the, like the Steph Curry syndrome. It's like, there's some people that are completely introverted and are like, you put them in around people and they absolutely can't stand it, but then you put them on the biggest stage in the freaking world and they are just calm as clams. And I'm just like,
100%.
it doesn't make any sense to me, because I'm like, I'm the opposite. Put me in a room with 10 people to small talk, I'm in heaven. Like, and then you put me on stage and I'm like, I'm about to wet myself. So like,
my
this
hands
is
my
like,
hands get sweaty. I get nervous. I suddenly don't know how words work. Like I'm in a room with people I don't know and I'm like, hi, you person, me too. Like what? And it makes no sense. My brain can't think. I instantly forget everyone's names.
Yeah.
Like I'll bump into someone I've known for 15 years, but like in a small room setting, I'm like, hey buddy, how you
Yeah.
doing? But on stage, or if I am again speaking to something versus just like, I don't know. And I don't think, but like going back again to, full circle conversation, like I don't think my career would be what it is had I not grown up playing music with you and with Aaron and my brother and everyone else. Because being on stage we played our first show when I was 12. Like that's
Yeah.
insane. And
Crandall
so,
Audio.
yep. So from basically 12 till I was 19, we played who knows how many shows. And
Yeah.
so I got really comfortable on stage and I see that transferred into my line of work of like, put me on stage or put me in front of an audience or put me in front of people. Like, and I don't want to use the word perform, but that's really like when you're working, like there's the performance, so to speak, almost. And I
Yeah.
got really comfortable with it at a young age. And so I don't know if my career would be what it is had we not been playing music, had we not been doing all that fun stuff, because it gave me the confidence of like, yeah, I can do this.
Yeah. Dude, well, I think that's awesome. And so I want to wrap this one up today with a
Do it.
question that's a little different than what I've done before. So if Nico 10 years from now comes back and tries to give you advice to you today, what is 10 what's 10 years from now Nico telling Nico today?
Enjoy the
What do you
journey.
think? Yeah.
Enjoy the journey. I mean, I know that one in my heart because that's the biggest lesson I've been trying to really take home over this last year. I think, and again, this is not like an arrogant thing, but I think by a lot of measures, I've done a great job. Like I've got a good marriage, I've got a great family, I've got a good business. Like we're okay financially. Like blah 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 blah. And I wasn't enjoying it. It was checklists on a to-do list of like, well, I've got to be successful because my family's successful, and I have to be a good husband because it's important. Like I have to be good. Like and so it was the work and not the actual enjoyment and fulfillment that comes from it. And I think if I met myself in 10 years, I think the question that he would ask is, did you enjoy yourself? Were you present enough to have fun with it? And for me, I realized this kind of goes to kind of what you were saying. Like I had some realization of some things of like, there's some things that are I'm going to say I'm not happy about from growing up of like, yeah, it is a little bit insane that like my parents didn't really care if I lived at home or not. That's kind of weird to me. Like I'd be heartbroken if my daughter was like, I don't want to live with you guys anymore, right? And so are these things like that'd be so weird to me. Like, what the hell are you
I'm
talking
gonna,
about?
I'm gonna live at Stacy's house down the street.
Yeah, like that's what the
And
hell are you
Stacy's
talking
parents were
about?
just like, sure.
Okay, yeah. So like it's so weird to me that my parents were like, yeah, you want to move out at 13 and like we'll just see you on the weekends? Okay. Like that's really weird to me. And so like there was a lot of like, and again, like, everyone's got their stuff from growing up, but like seeing either interactions with people or seeing how family members handled certain situations. Like I've always been a pretty calm, collected person, kind of what you were saying earlier. Like I don't get angry easy. I don't get upset easy. It's pretty hard to ruffle my feathers. But I learned like, well, part of why I also wasn't experiencing like these crazy joy and highs that I really should be experiencing. So I also learned to limit how much I'd let myself feel sadness or feel anger or any of
Yeah.
these other, kind of things. And I had this big realization about a year ago of like, if you want to paint a beautiful picture, you can't give yourself two colors. Like you have to have the full spectrum of colors that you want to use. And you may not use them and they may not always be the colors you pick, but like you got to have them in your roster, like on the palette to
Yeah.
choose from. And realizing that was like, if you want to have more joy in the journey, you got to experience it all, highs and lows, madness, sadness, anger, frustration, happiness, success, like all of it. And so I think, in 10 years, I would ask myself, like, have you allowed yourself to experience it and have fun with it? Did you enjoy the journey? Because that's the destination. There's no mountain. I mean, that's one thing I think for any entrepreneur or any, serial busy person, what you want to call it. Like, I look at my career, I'm like, there was a level I wanted to hit from a professional standpoint. And when I hit it, I'm like, okay, well, I want to hit this one. And then I want to hit that. I'm like, oh, I want to hit this one. I'm like, oh, there's a certain income I want to have. Like, okay, well, now I want this one. And I want to have this toy and I want to have this car and I want to have this watch and I want to have this. And it's like that hedonic treadmill Like, you never get
Yeah.
off of it if you're not aware of it. And so if the journey isn't what you're focusing on and the goalpost of the destination's always moving, I think that's why people end up unhappy at 55 or 60 years old, because they never enjoyed the process to it. So
Yeah.
I'll watch
Dude.
this in 10 years and see if I listen to myself, but enjoy the journey, man. That's the whole point
Dude,
of all this.
I love it, man. And this has been great, dude. And I appreciate you coming on, and it's been fun to
Thanks for having
watch.
me, man.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch the arc of your life thus far from a distance. You know, we haven't stayed in amazing contact over our life, but contact enough where, you know, we've kind of seen each other's kids grow up from afar, and it's cool to see. I think one of the joys I get out of life is seeing friends that I really loved and respected throughout my life doing amazing things and being successful, and I would lump you into that category, man. So I hope
I appreciate it, man.
I hope life continues to go well and all the health and happiness for your family. So
Feelings
thanks for
mutual,
coming
man.
on.
I appreciate it. Absolutely, man. Thank you.
See you later.